Do you change your own oil on your F-150? In my experience, the toughest part of the job on my 22 XLT PowerBoost is actually changing the oil filter. Well, after suffering through a few oil changes, I finally found the perfect combination of tools that makes this a super easy one-handed job. So if you have an F-150 PowerBoost or even a 3.5 liter EcoBoost, stay with me and I'll show you the two tools that you need to make this a snap. This short video will be definitely worth your time. And no, this video is not for you 2.7 liter guys who have the filter on top of the engine and can do this job in their pajamas, nor is this for you 5 liter Coyote guys who have all kinds of room to remove that filter. Let's back up for a second. What is the problem that I'm trying to fix here? For the EcoBoost and the PowerBoost engines, which share the same internal combustion engine, the oil filter is tucked all the way down here on the very bottom of the engine, the very bottom front. Well, that by itself is no factor, but the problem is with the EcoBoost and especially with the PowerBoost, you've got all these hoses that surround it. So it's almost like a scene from the movie Aliens. You're surrounded by all these hoses. You just can't get a wrench in there to grab that filter.
Game over, man. It's game over.
So the challenge is actually getting a tool into there which can grab onto that filter and get some torque on it. You got all kinds of hoses and attachments and all kinds of garbage in the way, and it can be super, super frustrating before you finally grab that thing and pull it out. We need to find a way to make this happen with just one hand. Let's talk about the different types of tools that we can use for this and my solution. Okay, here's the oil filter that we want to be removing. I tell you what, even though we hand tighten these, we never use a wrench to tighten them. Getting them off in the opposite direction always seems to be much, much harder, such the point where you can't get it off by hand. So typically you'll use some type of an oil wrench like this, which is, pretty common band type of wrench to get it off. But unfortunately, there's just no room in the front of the engine on the PowerBoost or the 3.5 liter EcoBoost to get this thing into there. So this isn't going to work. So the next thing that you normally do is something like this, where you use an expandable, kind of a universal wrench. And I've been using this thing for the better part of 30 years. And so it works just fine, but the problem is this is a two-handed operation. If you've got this thing, trying to get this thing to lock on and not just spin requires you to get a second hand into there underneath the engine. And the problem is you don't have a second hand because you just don't have the space to get your second hand in there, and you're trying to prop yourself up under the truck to begin with. Now, I'm not talking about you guys that have a lift and you can stand underneath the thing and then you have access to both hands. I'm talking about us poor slobs that are underneath the truck up on ramps and you just don't have a second hand to get up in there. And so this does not work. I've gotten this to work in the past before. I've gotten a second hand in there and was able to get a finger in there, but this doesn't work. Okay, so the next thing that I tried was your typical cap wrench. So there's a 7614, which fits perfectly on top of here. But there's a problem with this specific cap wrench. And the problem is that you can see this here is that there's not enough of a boss on the end of this cap wrench. And what happens is you don't get very deep penetration onto here. So if I'm straight on like this, yeah, I can get some pretty good torque. The problem is you can't get straight on to the filter when you're underneath the PowerBoost. I have not gotten this to be able to work. And it's because it spins off and you can't get a direct perpendicular attachment to this. And I think a lot of this is because you can't get deep enough because it's going to be limited because the extension protrudes into there. So one of the first things that's going to help you is to get a decent cap wrench like this with a good boss on the top, which separates the extension or anything that you use, extension, the wrench, from the inside of the filter. So notice this one has a much deeper purchase on this. It really does hold. So this alone might have been able to fix my problem. But again, the biggest problem with this solution, even though you can get this in here, you cannot get the wrench to go. There's just not enough room to get this into there. So I got some very helpful advice from some of the folks that have watched my videos in the past, and what they recommended is using a swivel and a little bit longer extension to go on this cap wrench to do something like this. And so what you're going to use is an arrangement like this. So with a good cap wrench, a 45-degree swivel, and probably somewhere around a 12 to 15 inch, and if you have to, you can stack these on top of each other, 3/8 extension. And quite honestly, this would do the job. So this would be fine if this is all that I had, but I wanted to go one step beyond this. I thought that there might be a better solution to do this one hand. The problem is, I mean, you can get this to work with one hand, but it's a little bit awkward because you've got, it's just not meant to be used as one hand, right? Because it's meant to be anchored onto there. I think this will be totally fine if this is all that you wanted to use, but I thought that there was a better solution, and I found this. It's called a ratcheting T-handle. This thing is awesome because it's got a ratchet right here. It's got its own built-in swivel. So instead of the ratchet being down here on the wrench, the ratchet's actually in the business end of where you need it. And so when you stack these all together, I believe the ultimate solution for this is to use the appropriate cap wrench with a good boss on it, and then this swiveling ratchet handle. And so you can get an incredible amount of torque with the T-handle on here just with one hand. So it starts by fitting it onto the filter. It's very easy to do, and it truly makes this a one-hand job. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you my latest oil change, where I literally had this process down and loosening the filter in about 10 seconds. Let's cut to that. As you watch this, keep in mind that I'm holding the camera in my left hand while I'm using my right hand to loosen the oil filter. Now keep in mind, while you watch me fumble around with this, I'd never used this before, so it takes a little getting used to get everything situated. But also, I crank these things down as tight as I can with my hand because I've had loose filters before. I never want that to happen again. And so it does take quite a bit of torque to break these things loose. By this time, the filter's loose. I could reach up there with my hand and spin it at this point. And now, as we look below, we see the proof of the pudding. We're done. Easiest oil change ever on my truck. All right, if you're interested in where I found these tools through either Harbor Freight or Amazon, I've got sources listed in the information below, so you can check that out. And I hope that helps you. I get all the ideas for my videos from viewers just like yourself, so please let me know in the comments below if there's something else that you'd like me to tackle. And I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for listening.